What is your fake it till you make it story? I started at a big ol' multinational in retail as a college dropout. I started at the lowest rung of customer service in a store. Now retail has lots and lots of staff turnover, and a multinational has a ton of rules, or you'd expect them to have. Also, I'm not the dumbest around. Never mind the college dropout, that's another story. And well, to be fair, not everyone in retail is super smart. So there was a consistent lack of management, or they didn't care, and all the rules and regulations had gaps in them. So people start asking questions. How do I solve this? What should I do next? Etc. Nobody had an answer to these questions. So I started answering them using common sense or what I'd think should work. Just filling the gaps, which probably made me look a lot smarter than I am. Just faking that I knew what I was doing. So I started climbing the ladders, and I am now the senior finance and operations director for a store with a gross turnover of over 160 million euros. I taught a class on a specialty software program. I was learning the software myself, and I was literally one class ahead of the people I was teaching. When I was younger, I used to randomly apply for jobs out of curiosity. Worked at a ton of places: junkyard, machine shop, security at a PRN store, etc. Well, one job I applied for was an analytical position at a small insurance company. I have absolutely zero experience in any office setting except a call center, and was not qualified for the job at all. My resume was 100% lies. I even made up the name of the college. Well, they hired me. The place was so disorganized that I essentially just kind of talked my way into it. The people interviewing me didn't even know what position it was for. They paid me $60,000 a year. 3 times what I had ever made. I was 19 and absolutely rolling in money. I even had a little office. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing, so I just kind of flew under the radar. My parents thought it was hilarious. I was literally making as much money as my dad, who was a metallurgical engineer. Unfortunately, it didn't last long. A larger company bought us out, mined the company, and fired everyone. I stole a couple laptops on my way out. One of the guys I worked with talked someone into giving him one of the company cars, a super nice BMW. I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I hated school with a passion. I did get a GED. I started working retail and found I really liked managing projects and eventually people. I ended up leaving retail for a call center job in a fairly large company. Within 4 years I was running a marketing division. I had no clue what marketing was or anything. I'm just good at getting people to trust me, and I'm very creative. I got bored there and somehow got myself into another marketing role at an even bigger company. 5 years later I'm the CMO. I still really don't know about traditional school taught marketing. I literally faked it till I made it. I'm very good at what I do. Last weekend I was at a wedding dance and they played Legit Up. No one knew the dance, including myself. But liquid encouragement kicked in and I lead the entire wedding dance. 50 plus people, in a dance that I completely made up on the spot. Everyone was so impressed after that I knew all of the moves, that I didn't tell anyone any different. I hope some of those people are teaching others your made up dance. It's already in Fortnite. I'd always been interested in programming. As a kid I tried to teach myself C and Java with mild success. Fast forward to the time I'm 24. I'm working as a piercing apprentice at a tattoo shop making $20 a day a few days per week. I meet a girl. Fall for said girl. Girl ends up pregnant. A few hours after the pregnancy test I'm applying for jobs on Craigslist and I find a PHP job a few minutes up the road. I've worked with PHP for maybe a few hours in my entire lifetime, but it was a tiny company and the interview wasn't technical. I lied through my teeth the entire time and get hired. After being hired I tried to start learning PHP on the job. The owner of the company created his own PHP framework which was god awful, so I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I got fired 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks on the job I made an honest effort to learn more about web design and development, so I offered my design services to local web design company for free so that I could learn. Walking home after being fired I called up the web design company and they ended up hiring me. I would learn on the job for a year or so and then take my skills to get more money somewhere else. 10 years later I'm the lead software engineer on a big project making just over 6 figures. If a pregnancy test hadn't scared me to death that day, I would still be working dead-end jobs to scrape up enough money for weed and booze. Not me, but my cousin applied for a brand new restaurant job and didn't get it. Her friend got the job and she was pissed she didn't get hired. So her friend told her where when orientation was, and she decided to fake getting hired till she made it. She went to orientation, all the training, introduced herself to all the staff, management, and made her presence known. After a couple of weeks working, everyone got their paychecks, except her. She went up to management and was like, WTH, everyone got paid but me. You've seen me working for the last 2 weeks. Management goes into the computer system and checks. That's so weird, you're not in the system. I'm so sorry. Must be a clerical error. We will get you in the system and paid right away. And that's how my cousin fake got hired till she made it. I wanna be like her when I grow up. My entire professional career, I played with computers growing up, and so far as I knew how to turn one on, download a game, and play them very well, I knew next to nothing about building them or troubleshooting them. Usually depending on my friends to help when my second-hand PC threw a fit. Cut to me, fresh out of college with a waste of paper degree looking for a job. I get hired by an ed contractor, cause I knew a gal that knew a guy, with the understanding I needed to know the basics. I didn't know anything. I made it up as I went along, googling the living crap out of everything. That was 10 years ago. I'm now a systems administrator. I'm an artist who works in the film industry. Some years ago my wife got pregnant, purposefully, and I had to try to find a way to make more reliable income while she was on mat leave and for the foreseeable future. As we knew we weren't only having one, I also wanted to stay in film. I got work as a grunt work lugging things around set and building, setting up large bits of lighting gear. No clue what I was doing. I started off on big shows like The Flash and Arrow. A friend got me work on a small set, and only 13 days into working as a grip, which I didn't tell them, they made me the key grip. Key is film talk for manager. I was in charge of a whole department, which is one half of the lighting team. Faked it until I made it. Fast forward over 5 years. I have over 30 credits to my name as a key grip. I own an entire 5-ton truck's worth of gear that I rent out, which makes as much money per show as my wage did. My wife is back at work after having 2 kids, and I'm a stay-at-home dad with consistent passive income and the time to continue to write and audition whenever I need. I had this file thing in elementary school where you have to put all your worksheets in a folder and my teacher will check it at the end of the year. Well, I did not do it and convinced her that I handed in, but she lost it. She said she will get back to me and I'm still waiting. I was desperate for a job several years back, so I wrote up this resume that was utter crap on a whim. Granted, some of it was legit, but a good 80% was me bullshitting. Amazingly enough, I got a call for an interview and by some miracle they ended up hiring me, and I worked for the place for 7 years before something I was actually qualified for opened up at another workplace. That resume saved me from ruin though, so I always will look back in that crazy situation fondly. My business started by me just saying, yes, I can do that. I can supply that for you. I had no idea that they would be willing to hear me out. 5 years later and I'm now supplying desks and office equipment to over 120 offices in London. You really can go far if you just say yes. Yes, not you. Social anxiety. I was always the quiet guy up until a few years ago. I decided I was tired of not having friends and I started faking confidence and talking to everyone. In the beginning I was dying inside and felt like I was walking on glass. Now I don't know when to shut up and can talk to just about anyone. During college, I worked part-time as a deli clerk in a grocery store. I had zero experience with deli items, didn't know head cheese from salami or provolone from Munster. So, I'd explain to customers that I was new and ask them to point to items in the case that they wanted and what the sign indicated for the price per pound. They always seemed happy to help out, especially when I gave them free samples from the slicing machine. Hey, this kid has been new for over 10 years now. I George Costanza'd my way into a job in high school. I was looking for a new job and went to apply at a local movie theater. The general manager asked to interview me on the spot, which I wasn't at all prepared for, but went with it anyway. This was like a Wednesday or Thursday night. The interview went well, and she told me she was going to be out of town this weekend. but she would let me know on Monday. I didn't want to wait, so the next day at school I got my work permit filled out and took it back. I dropped it off to another manager and told them she told me to bring this crap in. They asked if I could start the next day. This guy hired himself. Was told that in order to get sober I needed to find a church and start going regularly. I picked a church, went to every service, sat in the front row and sang along with all the hymns. After about 2 months of regular attendance, the priest asked if I wanted to take over the Sunday school class. I politely declined. I managed to convince a priest I was Christian enough to take over a Sunday school class, but it was still more than another year until I could stay sober, without church. I'm painfully shy and terrified of speaking in front of people. A few years ago I started volunteering at my local animal shelter and would always sign up for a time slot before the shelter opened to the public so I wouldn't have to deal with people. I kept getting assigned new volunteers to show them the ropes because my time slot was when it was quiet and there wouldn't be interruptions. I really extremely didn't want to deal with people, but I went ahead anyway because it meant I got my own kennel key. I was nervous as hell and didn't know what I was doing but plowed ahead anyway. Then I got the hang of it. Now, 4 years later, I'm one of the leads. I have access to restricted areas of the shelter. I'm one of only 2 volunteers allowed to update the animals' notes on the shelter site, and I'm highly respected and considered a role model. I'm still terrified, proud, but terrified. Honestly, I felt like this for most of my jobs in the id industry. I work on Cisco voice systems and it always seemed like I was getting jobs that were just a bit higher technical level than I was at. So I was constantly working hard to learn what I didn't know to get to the level that I was supposed to be at. Or they would have one of the Cisco voice platforms that I wasn't familiar with but expected me to troubleshoot and work on. Such as my current job, which has AX, call center stuff, and I'd never worked on anything but UCCX, which is the very slimmed down version of AX and is very different. So now I'm working hard to learn AX, but I'm always feeling like at any time they'll realize they can get someone better and replace me. Not even going to lie, I used to trace other people's art so often as a young artist, like 8-10, but now, I have that guidance of technique with me when I create my own pieces. Graduate school, doctoral program. Anyone who has endured this pain understands that the transition from undergraduate to graduate training can be very much intimidating and elicit imposter syndrome. Everyone in my cohort was faking it till making it. But in that process of stress and class and practica and comps and writing and research and teaching and learning, you eventually make it. But it's a big getting there, and every day early on feels pretty fake. Just gotta get your mental health right, get your physical health right, get your social support right, make sure to keep your hobbies up, try to research something you're marginally actually interested in, establish good relationships with faculty, your cohort, your pi, etc. Trust in your self-efficacy, keep grinding, faking it, and doing the best you can until you come out the other side all the wiser for it. The competency and confidence will come, but not without the sacrifice of anxiety and time put in. A lot of people think doctoral programs are about intelligence. Sure, to some extent, but not nearly as much as people think. It's really about persistence, determination, commitment, resilience, and grit. The process will test you and break you, but you will grow, and you can succeed. A while ago I decided to stop complaining about environmental destruction, climate change, etc., and act. So I started planting trees. Keep in mind I had no training in this. I never even gardened before. I considered myself a brown thumb. I researched how to do it and it seemed pretty easy, but everything died. I'd plant a tree exactly how they said, but it wouldn't survive. I had to baby them so much, just to get them through their first year, and maybe half would make it, but I just kept planting and faking I knew what I was doing. Then I came across stuff by Dr. Bluffing on soil science and it kind of changed everything for me. It made a whole lot of sense. Ecosystems transition from dead land, to weed pit, to grassland, to brushland to forest. As they do, the soil microbiology changes from dead soil to bacterial dominated soil, to fungal dominated soil. So the correct way to plant trees is actually to transition the soil to forest soil as fast as possible. Nature takes thousands of years of weeds dying, and then grass is dying and soil life building and building, a small woody shrub, which then eventually dies, and now it changes. Now everything changes. Woody material on the ground means fungus can move in. It's game over at this point, and you will transition to a forest now. So the correct way to plant a tree is to speed yourself to this point by dropping wood chips on the ground and letting the soil chemistry change. After a few months, or even better, a year, now plant your trees into the environment they want to live in. Well, that changed everything, and now I go around planting mini starting forests everywhere on my land, in wild places, abandoned lots, etc. I've seen little pockets of life I've planted turn from a few trees to a small thicket. At this point, it's unstoppable and the land heals. It's an incredibly rewarding hobby, but one you must take very seriously. Anytime you plant something, you set in motion wheels of change, so you must know what you are planting. For this reason I stick to local native trees, shrubs, herbs, flowers, things that exist all around me. That's good for many reasons, the least of which isn't free genetic material, seeds, to make this hobby 100% free. What is really rewarding though is driving to work and seeing a bird perched on an apple tree that I planted, in a cluster of life with bees buzzing around the apple, haskap and lovage and borage and strawberries and asparagus, clover, fruit tree guild. Looking and seeing apple saplings bursting up through the sweet Sicily, the ecosystem has its foothold in now, and will replicate itself, sequestering carbon and healing the soil long after I'm gone. So I started as someone who considered themselves a brown thumb, and with a little action and knowledge seeking, I now have pockets of life all around my community that are expanding and growing, that I was the catalyst for creating. That's a legacy right there, and that's how we reverse climate change and give our children a world worth living in.